Hello everyone, and welcome to your second-year course in English Literature for the 2022-23 session. Think of this as our official kickoff for a really important theory paper, Study of Fiction, which will be your Paper 1. Now, this is a core course, so whether English Lit is your major, your minor, or an elective you've chosen, you are in the right place. So what we're going to do today is basically take a guided tour of your official syllabus. Everything we're about to cover comes directly from this document. The whole point here is to make sure you start the semester feeling confident with a really clear picture of what we're going to be reading, what we'll be analyzing, and what you're going to learn. All right, let's start with the big picture. This first section is all about the why. Why do we study fiction in an academic setting? I mean, what skills and insights are you actually expected to gain from this? Let's lay down that intellectual foundation before we dive into the books themselves. Your syllabus lists some key learning outcomes, but let's talk about what that really means for you. We're going to move way beyond just reading for the plot. You're going to learn to analyze different forms of fiction and actually trace the history of how the English novel came to be. This course is really designed to deepen your appreciation for big ideas like morality and humanity by getting into the heads of complex characters. You'll improve your understanding of the world, expand your own imagination, and of course, you'll pick up some fantastic new vocabulary along the way. So here's our roadmap. It follows your syllabus exactly. We've just talked about our purpose, our journey into fiction. Next, we'll travel through 4 key periods, starting with the rise of the novel, then Victorian realism, modern fiction, and finally the birth of genre fiction. And we'll wrap up by looking at where these skills can take you in the future. All right, let's dive into our first major stop, the 18th century. This first unit of your syllabus is all about the period when the novel, as we know it, really started to take shape. This is where the foundation for everything that came after was built. Okay, so for Unit 1, which is called Forms of Early Fiction, you'll want to take some notes. We'll start with a general introduction to fiction and its types. Then we're jumping into 3 huge novels: Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, Samuel Richardson's Pamela, and of course, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Each one of these was a game changer for its time. Now, one of those key texts, Samuel Richardson's Pamela, is a perfect example of something called an epistolary novel. What does that mean? It means the entire story is told through documents, in this case, letters written by the main character. This was a totally revolutionary technique back then. It created this incredible sense of intimacy and psychological realism. To really get what that feels like, think about it in modern terms. Reading Pamela's private letters in the 18th century was a lot like how a modern story might be told through someone's secret blog, their private emails, or even their text message history. You get this completely unfiltered look right into the character's mind. Okay, and to really nail this unit, you're going to want to get comfortable with these keywords. These are the tools for your analysis. We'll be talking about the Augustan Age and the Age of Enlightenment. And you'll need to know the difference between an epistolary novel and a picaresque novel, and start to see the beginnings of Romanticism in a writer like Austen. All right, moving on. From the early days of the novel, we're jumping forward into the 19th century. Unit 2 is all about the Victorian era, a time of massive, world-changing social and industrial upheaval. And the novel? Well, the novel became this incredibly powerful tool for exploring and critiquing everything that was happening. So, Unit 2 focuses on Victorian fiction, and here we are meeting 3 absolute giants of the era. First, Charles Dickens with A Tale of Two Cities. Then we have Thomas Hardy with The Mayor of Casterbridge. And finally, George Eliot's masterpiece, Middlemarch. Each one gives us a totally unique window into Victorian society. A really important idea for this unit is the social novel. You see, this wasn't just storytelling for entertainment. Authors like Dickens and Eliot were wrestling with the biggest problems of their time: the brutal reality of poverty, the chaos of the Industrial Revolution, and the suffocating class system. Their novels were a powerful form of social commentary. Think about the real-world power these books had. Reading about the plight of the poor in Dickinson's London served a purpose pretty similar to watching a hard-hitting documentary or reading a piece of investigative journalism today. It forced a wide audience to look at the uncomfortable truths of their own society. So, the key words you need to know for this unit all circle around the Victorian age. You'll need to be fluent in the ideas of realism and the social novel. We'll also be digging into the impact of the Industrial Revolution and exploring some darker themes, especially in Hardy's work, like pessimism and the role of fate. Okay, so we've seen these huge, sprawling novels about society. Now for Unit 3, we take a leap into the 20th century, into modern fiction. And here, the camera zooms in. The focus shifts from that big outer world of society to the complex, messy, inner world of the human mind. It was a time of truly radical experimentation. Your readings for Unit 3 are incredible. We have D.H. Lawrence's deeply psychological Sons and Lovers, Virginia Woolf's revolutionary novel Mrs. Dalloway, and George Orwell's terrifyingly relevant vision of the future, 1984. Each one of these books absolutely broke the mold. Now, to really get modernism, you have to wrap your head around this technique, stream of consciousness. Virginia Woolf is the master of this in Mrs. Dalloway. It's an attempt to write down thought itself, not in neat, clean sentences, but in the chaotic, associative, free-flowing way our minds actually work, jumping from memories to sensations to worries.
But it wasn't all just about looking inward. Modernism also gave us some incredibly sharp political critiques. And that brings us to another huge concept: dystopia. Literally, it means bad place. And it describes a fictional society gone horribly wrong. George Orwell's 1984 is the textbook example, showing us a terrifying world of total government control.
So as you can see from the keywords here, this unit has this really cool dual focus on the internal and the political. We'll be looking at the autobiographical novel with Lawrence, stream of consciousness with Woolf, and the political ideas of dystopia and totalitarianism with Orwell. And all throughout, we'll be watching for the powerful use of symbolism. And for our last big content unit, we're looking at the birth of stories that, honestly, have shaped so much of the pop culture we still love today. Unit 4 is all about the origins of two massively influential genres, detective literature and science fiction. For Unit 4, you'll be digging into these genre-defining texts. We've got Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, R.L. Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and Arthur Conan Doyle's most famous Sherlock Holmes adventure, The Hound of the Baskervilles. These stories completely changed how we think about science, crime, and the darkness inside us. I really can't overstate how important these books are. Frankenstein is amazing. It's a masterpiece of Gothic horror, but it also pretty much invents the entire genre of science fiction. And Arthur Conan Doyle, he didn't just write a good mystery. He created the blueprint for the modern detective story that's still being used today. So, the key words for this final unit are all about what makes these genres tick. We'll be talking about mystery, the consequences of scientific discovery, and of course, the character of Sherlock Holmes himself. We'll also dive into the traditions of the Gothic and the birth of science fiction. Okay, so we've gone through all the amazing literature we're going to read. Now for the big question: why does this all matter after you graduate? How can reading these old books prepare you for a future career? Well, the skills you're about to develop are way more powerful and versatile than you might think. You know, studying literature isn't just about books. It's about learning how to analyze complex information, how to understand what motivates people, and how to build a clear, persuasive argument. And those skills, they're gold in so many fields: publishing, journalism, teaching, of course, but also in marketing, where you have to tell a compelling story, in digital media, and even in careers like law and public policy, where being able to interpret text carefully is absolutely critical. So where do you start? My best advice is to just start getting to know these main texts we've talked about. Your syllabus also has a great list of suggested readings and some really useful digital resources, like links on Wikipedia and SparkNotes. Use them. They're great for building up your understanding as you go. Look, this course is a fantastic chance to engage with some of the most powerful stories ever told. My final piece of advice is this: just jump in, embrace the complexity. Don't be afraid to question the ideas these books present. And please, most importantly, just enjoy the stories. I wish you all the best for the semester.
So, I'll leave you with this question to get you started. From a deserted island to a dystopian future, this incredible world of fiction is waiting for you. Which story will you explore first?